U.S. President Donald Trump said on Saturday that his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin assured him that Moscow did not interfere in the 2016 U.S. election during their discussions on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation APEC summit in Da Nang, Vietnam. "Every time he sees me, he said I didn't do that. And I really believe that when he tells me that he means it," Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One en route to the Vietnamese capital, Hanoi. He said he didn't meddle. "I asked him again. You can only ask so many times," Trump said. He also noted that Putin is very insulted by the accusation. Putin also swatted away accusations of election meddling as a U.S. domestic political struggle, in comments to reporters. "I think these are some sort of fantasies," he said of claims of collusion between the Kremlin and the Trump campaign. Read more. Why is the United States interested in the Indo-Pacific informal talks? Trump and Putin did not have a formal meeting at the APEC summit, but the two leaders met unofficially several times since late Friday and have even posed for a side-by-side photo. It was initially unclear whether Trump and Putin would formally meet. Russian and American relations are clouded currently by allegations that some of Trump's key aides collaborated with Moscow ahead of the president's win in 2016 elections. U.S. officials may well be anxious to avoid any encounter between the two men that could be seen to reinforce the notion that they are in cahoots in any way. Both the White House and the Kremlin have denied any wrongdoing. Read more. APEC summit. Free trade in Asia in the age of protectionism. Democrats creating artificial barrier. Trump has also accused U.S. Democrats of standing in the way of a good relationship with Russia by accusing Moscow of meddling in the elections. He said Russia's help would be beneficial in solving problems with North Korea, Syria and Ukraine, adding that people will die because of the Democratic hit job. Although no top-level formal Moscow-Washington encounter took place in Vietnam, the summit saw a brief meeting between Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his U.S. counterpart Rex Tillerson. Lavrov, when asked to give the details of their talks, said only "I can, but I wouldn't." June 18, 2013. Donald Trump tweeted the Miss Universe pageant will be broadcast live from Moscow, Russia on November 9. "A big deal that will bring our countries together," he later added. "Do you think Putin will be going? If so, will he become my new best friend?" October 17, 2013. Trump tells chat show host David Letterman he has conducted a lot of business with the Russians. An FBI agent told a tech support contractor at the Democratic National Committee it may have been hacked. On May 18, 2016, James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence, said there were some indications of cyberattacks aimed at the presidential campaigns. On June 14, 2016, the DNC announced it had been the victim of an attack by Russian hackers. Senator Jeff Sessions, an early Trump endorser who led his National Security Advisory Committee, met Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak and a group of other ambassadors at a Republican National Convention event. Julian Assange's WikiLeaks published 20,000 emails stolen from the DNC, appearing to show a preference for Hillary Clinton over Senator Bernie Sanders. The FBI announced it was investigating the DNC hack, saying a compromise of this nature is something we take very seriously. Donald Trump is elected President of the United States. On November 9, the Russian parliament burst into applause at the news. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybakov said there were contacts between the Russian government and the Trump campaign during the election campaign. The Trump campaign issued a firm denial. Trump named General Michael Flynn as his national security advisor. The former Defense Intelligence Agency chief was a top foreign policy advisor in Trump's campaign. Flynn resigned in February after failing to disclose full details of his communication with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak. Acting Attorney General Sally Yates told White House counsel Don McGahn that Flynn made false statements regarding his calls with Kislyak. On January 30, Trump fired Yates for refusing to enforce his travel ban, which was later blocked by federal courts. Trump said he had total confidence in Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Sessions announced he would recuse himself from any investigation into ties between Russia and the Trump campaign. FBI Director James Comey confirmed before the House Select Committee on Intelligence that the FBI was investigating possible links between Russia and the Trump campaign. In a letter announcing the termination, Trump wrote, "While I greatly appreciate you informing me, on 3 separate occasions, that I am not under investigation, I nevertheless concur with the judgment of the Department of Justice that you are not able to effectively lead the Bureau." Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein appointed former FBI Director Robert Mueller to look into Russia's interference in the 2016 election and possible collusion with the Trump campaign. Shortly after Mueller convenes a grand jury for the investigation, the FBI seizes documents from one of Paul Manafort's properties as part of a raid for Mueller's probe. The former Trump campaigner manager stepped down in August 2016 after allegations surfaced that he had received large payments linked to Ukraine's former pro-Russian government. Donald Trump Jr. tells the Senate Judiciary Committee he has not colluded with a foreign government. The closed-door interview relates to his June 2016 meeting with Russian lawyer Natalia Veselnitskaya, which was also attended by his brother-in-law, Jared Kushner, and then-campaign manager Paul Manafort. Trump Jr.'s emails, however, suggest the meeting was supposed to produce dirt on Clinton. Facebook, Twitter and Google reportedly tell U.S. media they have evidence that Russian operatives exploited platforms to spread disinformation during the 2016 U.S. presidential election. The three companies are expected to appear before a Senate Intelligence Committee in November. Author Joe Harper, Kathleen Schuster agreement on Syria. Trump and Putin did issue a statement on Saturday in which they agreed to continue joint efforts to fight the terrorist group Islamic State in Syria until it is completely defeated. The joint statement, published on the Kremlin's website, said that the two leaders also confirmed their commitment to Syria's sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity, and called on all warring parties to participate actively in the unsponsored peace process in Geneva. According to the text of the statement, Moscow and Washington also agreed that there was no military solution to the conflict, which began in 2011 with peaceful protests against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and has since grown into a multi-party war involving combatants ranging from government forces and moderate rebels to Islamist extremists such as IS. Opposing views. Russia and the United States have taken different sides in the conflict, with Moscow giving military support to troops of its longtime ally Assad, while Washington until this year backed rebels it considered legitimate in their fight against the Syrian regime. Reports in July 2017 said Trump had ended the clandestine CIA program of support for such rebels. Russia has been flying a bombing campaign in Syria since 2015, when it stepped in to support Assad's rule, tipping the conflict very much in his favor. Syria has been engulfed in a devastating civil war since 2011 after Syrian President Bashar al-Assad lost control over large parts of the country to multiple revolutionary groups. The conflict has since drawn in foreign powers and brought misery and death to many civilians. Syria's army, officially known as the Syrian Arab Army SA, is loyal to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and is fighting to restore the president's rule over the entire country. The SA has been fighting alongside a number of pro-Assad militias such as the National Defense Force and has cooperated with military advisors from Russia, which backs President Assad. The Free Syrian Army grew out of protests against the Assad regime that eventually turned violent. Along with other non-jihadist rebel groups, it seeks the ouster of President Assad and democratic elections. After suffering a number of defeats, many of its members defected to militant groups. It garnered some support from the U.S. and Turkey, but its strength has been greatly diminished. Fighting between Syrian Kurds and Islamists in the north and west of Syria has become its own conflict. An ethnic group concentrated in Turkey, Syria, and Iraq, Kurds have long sought their own homeland or autonomy within their respective countries. The US-led coalition against the Islamic State has backed the Syrian Democratic Forces, an alliance of Kurdish and Arab militias. Islamic State took advantage of regional chaos to capture vast swaths of territory in Iraq and Syria in 2014. Seeking to establish its own caliphate, IS has become infamous for its fundamentalist brand of Islam and its mass atrocities. IS is facing defeat in both countries after the US and Russia led separate military campaigns against the militant group. IS is not the only terrorist group that has ravaged Syria. A number of Islamist militant groups, such as the al-Qaeda-linked Nusra Front, also known as Jabhat Fatah al-Sham, are fighting in the conflict. Warring with each other and well as with pro-Assad forces and moderate rebels, Nusra Front merged with several other entities under the umbrella name Tahrir al-Sham in January 2017. The Kremlin has proven to be a powerful friend to President Assad. Russian ground troops officially joined the fight in September 2015 after years of supplying the Syrian army. Moscow has come under fire from the international community for the high number of civilian casualties during its airstrikes. The US and other NATO countries declined to send ground troops to assist in the Syrian conflict, but have denounced Assad and tacitly supported moderate rebels. A US-led coalition of about 60 countries, including Germany, began targeting IS and other terrorist targets with airstrikes in late 2014. Antis led by the US have culminated in major setbacks for the militant group. Turkey, which is also part of the US-led coalition against IS, has actively supported moderate rebels opposed to Assad. It has a tense relationship with its American allies, however, over U.S. cooperation with Kurdish fighters, some of whom support Kurdish secessionist factions within Turkey, such as the Kurdistan Workers' Party (PKK). Iran had supported Syrian President Bashar al-Assad before the conflict emerged in 2011. Eager to maintain its influence in the Middle East, Tehran has provided Damascus with strategic assistance, military training and ground troops. The Iran-backed Lebanese Shiite militant group Hezbollah also supports the Assad regime, fighting alongside Iranian forces in the country. Author Elizabeth Schumacher, Alexander Pearson RS, TJRCAP, AFP, DPA, Reuters.